What royal secrets does body language reveal in Meghan and Harry's sit-down interview with Oprah? And what's the truth? Find out next. Welcome back to the channel, Shakers. Derek Van Shake here. First, I am not a royal watcher, so I'm not on Team Kate or Team Meghan or anything like that. I don't personally care whether anyone is lying or telling the truth, so I'm just gonna call it how I see it. As many of you know, former Prince Harry and former Duchess Princess Meghan Markle left the British royal family in January of 2020, which was nicknamed by the tabloids Megxit, because it was believed that Meghan didn't want the royal life that she married into by marrying Prince Harry on May 19th, 2018. There were rumors about what happened and what was going on behind palace closed doors. However, it was mostly speculation because none of the British royals spoke openly to the media about what exactly happened. Until now, when Oprah sat down with Meghan and Harry, where they revealed their side of things, which led to them leaving the British royal family now permanently. But were they truthful in this interview, or did they lie to save face? So we're gonna break down their body language and analyze their verbal dynamics to finally reveal what actually happened behind palace closed doors. Now, let's get started.
Whoa! I know. You really are having a baby.
Having a baby.
That's more than a bump.
You're having a baby! I didn't even know she was pregnant. And I forgot that they already had a kid, too. I was like, oh, is this their first kid? No. They already have a kid.
We can't hug because we're practicing doing all the things. We've been so strict. Everybody around here.
The first thing that we notice is that they're not wearing masks, but they assure us that all of the people that are working on the set, who are like 20 feet away from each other, they're wearing like 3 masks.
Double masked and has face shields. You look lovely.
Thank you, so do you.
Meghan is wearing a long black dress. It's always important, especially in these types of interviews that are very, very public and are very groundbreaking, that are going to get a lot of attention, and the person knows that, they're usually going to think very hard about what they're going to wear. So because of all that extra forethought and thinking, we should probably break down the logic of her wearing what she's wearing. If you notice, she has very long sleeves, very long dress, just a tiny bit of cleavage. And given the circumstances that it appears to be a very nice day in California there, wearing a long black dress with long sleeves, the logic is probably to come across as conservatively dressed as possible, which will help increase her credibility in this interview. It doesn't necessarily mean, of course, she's wearing that to cover up the facts or try to deceive people or anything like that. She probably wants to come across as more conservative and her words taken more seriously.
This isn't my house. This isn't your house.
This is my house. We were using a friend's house.
Are they really saying that Meghan and Harry and Oprah didn't have anywhere nice to do the interview in their whole big estates?
Because they had a very nice,
beautiful
pergola.
Oprah is a billionaire, so a billionaire's mansion doesn't have anywhere nice to do an interview? Maybe it's because their houses look too nice. They look too palatial. That could have been it.
When you came through that door, it seemed like you were like floating down the aisle.
No, that's just what money can buy you. If you have a lot of money, you can make it look very magical. That's pretty much how it works.
Were you even inside your body at that time?
But you weren't just marrying a family, you're marrying the monarchy. What did you think it was going to be like?
I will say I went into it naively.
She nods her head. There's no waver in her voice. There's no odd face touches. She does seem to be very truthful. What's very interesting, however, is look, her eyebrows are raised.
I will say I went into it naively.
Indicating her innermost feelings of surprise, remembering back how she felt regarding this topic. So what this genuinely seems to tell us is that she felt surprised by how it was to be a royal.
Because I didn't grow up knowing much about the royal family.
Aha! And she moved her hair away from her face, clearly indicating that she had hair in her face. That's usually a typical mistake of amateur body language readers, is that they think any major movement is profound.
I didn't grow up knowing much about the royal family. It wasn't something.
As an American, I can relate to her. And maybe if you're an American, you have an idea of what I'm saying too. We don't really know too much about the royal family. We don't really keep up with it so much. Unless you're a royal watcher, you basically know whatever comes up on the news or what's in the supermarket tabloids as you're walking down the aisles. So that's pretty much the extent that we Americans know of the royals. I don't even know how many kids William and Kate have. I mean, it must be around 8 or so at this point.
Going to marry a royal, then you would do research about what that would mean.
Well, I didn't do any research about what that would mean.
You didn't do any research?
No.
Research is not something you could just Google. How do I be a princess in the British royal family? What do I need to know? Maybe she could have spoke in depth to all the British royal family, what it is to be in the royal family and what it's like. And I'll be shocked if she didn't have that conversation with Kate Middleton, kind of like you were a commoner. How was that transition like and what were the expectations?
I didn't romanticize any element of it.
So she starts talking about not romanticizing any element of being royal. Okay. Now, when I hit play, watch this.
But I think as Americans especially, what do you know about the royals? It's what you read in fairy tales.
Right.
You think is what you know about the royals, right?
But she got most of her knowledge of the royal family from fairy tales? Oh, we gotta watch some Disney movies. I did my research. She watched Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast. I think as much as she said that she didn't romanticize it at all, I think in a lot of ways she accidentally did. They're so perfect on stage and everything looks so great. They couldn't possibly be acting like any normal family. There's an old saying, everyone's normal until you get to know them. But I think the difference that she was experiencing is that it's very, very public. It's all out in the public and everyone wants to know who's doing what, who likes who, who's mad at who. It's a totally different dynamic than any typical private family that you and I may be familiar with. So it's a lot of extra pressure and frankly nonsense that they have to deal with because everyone else is interested in what's going on in their family.
So it's easy to have an image of it that is so far from reality.
Similarly, like the perception versus reality on Instagram. How perfect everyone's life is and how basically your life sucks and how everyone's life is so wonderful and perfect. But in reality, it took 2 hours to prepare for that picture, 1 hour to take the picture, and then another hour to edit the picture.
And that's what was really tricky over those past few years is when the perception and the reality are two very different things and you're being judged on the perception, but you're living the reality of it. There's a complete misalignment and there's no way to explain that to people.
Basically is what she's exposing is that the family that she married into isn't as perfect as they want you to believe. But a lot of times we naturally believe what we see. We see them all perfect and looking great, and we think naturally it's the halo effect. Oh, well, they must be perfect then because they look perfect. And we talked about this type of thing, the halo effect and the devil horns effect, on my More on Scott Peterson video on my More channel. So if you want to know more about the halo effect and the devil horns effect, you can go check out that video later.
Well, you know, in every family, I think things get serious when you are brought in to meet the mother or the grandmother. What was that like? Were you worried about making the right impression?
There wasn't actually a huge formality the first time I met Her Majesty the Queen.
You see her shift in her seat when she says Her Majesty the Queen.
Her Majesty the Queen.
Indicating something what she's remembering back to made her feel uncomfortable. We also see her increase her blink rate while also looking away. She's remembering back on something that doesn't seem like it was a good memory. Let's keep watching.
Harry and I are in the car and he says, okay, well, my grandmother's there, so you're going to meet her. Oh, great. I loved my grandmother. I used to take care of my grandmother. This is great. He goes, right, do you know how to curtsy?
Oh boy, you know how to curtsy to the Queen? Clearly what made Meghan feel uncomfortable thinking back to this before that you saw was probably this. Grandson, your girlfriend didn't curtsy to me. Who does they think they are? I'm the Queen. I think Americans who aren't royal watchers can really relate to her. I wouldn't be thinking I need to bow to the grandmother of my girlfriend.
What? I said, do you know how to curtsy? Now, I thought genuinely that was what happens outside.
Yeah.
I thought that was part of the fanfare. Or
It's just so odd to think that that kind of formality continues behind closed doors. What? It's just so foreign to me, and I think it may be foreign to you, and certainly it was foreign to her too. I wouldn't think I would need to bow to the Queen if I was basically family.
I didn't think that's what happens inside, and I
Yeah.
said, but it's your grandmother. He goes, it's the Queen.
She gives a genuine smile with her eyes open, her eyebrows raised, indicating that she opened her eyes to it like, oh, it's not just the public type of thing. She's the Queen even when the doors are closed. So it's understandable that she would want to empathize and agree with and be aligned with Harry on this topic that clearly means a lot to Harry because he grew up in this. It's to maintain their figurehead position in society. And you may be wondering about the body language of curtsying and bowing. What it basically says physically is that you are beneath them. I mean, that's what it is. It's literally saying that. Lowering yourself down below where they are indicates that you are inferior and they're superior. But again, coming from an American culture, we don't really believe that really at all. I mean, at least outwardly, we don't believe that someone is more inferior than the other. Our country is founded on democracy, which is more founded on equality, or at least it was supposed to be that way, where two parties are equal. That's why handshakes, I guess pre-COVID, were nice, because if done properly, indicate equality and mutual respect for one another. Because what it's saying is that we are human, we are equal.
But it's very easy, I think, especially as an American, to go, oh, these are famous people. It's like, no, this is a completely different ball game.
You say the narrative with Kate, it didn't happen. So specifically, did you make Kate cry?
Someone made somebody cry. We need to figure out who did. Watch your body language, see what you think, then we'll break it down.
No.
Did you pick up on it? Let's break it down. Can't believe this is actually an issue.
No.
A very common mistake of an amateur reading body language is not understanding context, clusters, and situation. Someone doing this in one context, cluster, and situation is different than them doing this in a different context, cluster, and situation. So in this situation, context, and cluster, in a time when she's asked point blank, did she or did she not make someone cry? She raises her eyebrows in what's called defying gravity. And as she's saying no, she gives a congruent head shake.
No.
And then notice what happens with her body language. She purses her lips really, really tightly in what seems to be possibly holding back some duping delight, and also doesn't say anything more.
No.
You may be saying, wait a second, so there's some congruency with her body language of giving a head shake and saying no, and also some little indications of possible deception. What this all says is that she's holding something back. She's not giving the whole story. Let's keep watching to see how all this plays out and see what else we can find.
So where did that come from?
She bats her eyes while looking away, indicating thought, while also keeping her lips tightly pursed. Now watch what happens here. Also, the silence indicates that she doesn't know exactly what to say, or maybe how to say something. Indicates apprehension and holding back something. This is why context is extremely important in body language. We know that she's not being very open with what happened with Kate here. We don't know exactly why or what exactly it is. Let's keep watching here when Oprah interrupts her and see what you think of her body language.
Was there a situation?
Did you catch it? Meghan was clearly startled here by Oprah. Did you notice her shoulders suddenly rise up in self-defense?
Was there a situation?
Also taking a little bit of a gasping gulp.
Was there a situation?
So the big question here is why, though? Why is she so self-defensive here? It could be anything from a lie, or it could be, I just don't want to say certain things, and I feel uncomfortable kind of talking about this, and maybe it will further ruin the relationship that she has with Kate. But what we clearly know here is that she's holding back a lot, and is not being very transparent.
Where she might have cried, or she could have cried?
No, the reverse happened. And I don't say that to be disparaging to anyone, because it was a really hard week of the wedding, and she was upset about something, but
I didn't make her cry. She made me cry. If I had to guess, I would say it would be one of those things where they were both hurt by something. And it came out in the tabloids that Kate was hurt. And then Meghan's like, hey, wait a second. I'm the one that should be hurt. What the heck? And this may be her here counteracting all the blame that she was given for that interaction that she had with Kate.
The story came out 7 months after it actually happened.
yeah.
So when you
I would have never wanted that to come out about her.
See something very interesting here. It's basically Meghan saying, hey, I feel like I'm not the one that's spreading things or putting out bad press about Kate. And I could have done that kind of thing. And why is it that all these bad things are coming out about me 7 months after it happened? Seems like someone on the inside is attack dogging me. That seems to be what she's saying. Seems like the tabloids had to make a good princess versus bad princess type of narrative. And they already had Kate as the good princess, and it was so easy just to peg her as the bad princess. I think a lot of it for Meghan, at least the way that she feels, is that she was set up in this. Whether it's completely true or not, that's the way it seems like she feels. And her emotions and her body language seem to be authentic.
If you love me, you don't have to hate her. And if you love her, you don't need to hate me.
Mm-hmm.
And this right here is just absolutely terrible of what the tabloids did. They're always looking for some story, and they always make up narratives and stupid crap. And they try to manifest it, frankly, within the family, because the tabloids don't care about them and their relationship between the two women. They don't care. All they care about is selling magazines in the supermarket.
Do you think there was a standard for Kate in general and a separate one for you? And if so, why?
I don't know why.
When she says she doesn't know why, she is lying. She knows why. Because look at her closed-lipped, wide-eyed smile. She seems to know why, but is just not ready to get into it yet.
I can see now what layers were at play there. And again, they really seem to want a narrative of a hero and a villain.
Now we start hearing about it from her angle and the way that she wants to be talking about it.
Were you silent or were you silenced?
The latter.
She personally believes that her body language is very congruent. And keep in mind too, this is their side of the story. And this is specifically how she views what happened to her and what it was like being part of the royal family. I'm sure other people in the family will have their own perspectives, but this is her perspective.
Even as things started to roll out in the media that I didn't see, but my friends would call me and say, Meg, this is really bad. Because I didn't see it, I'd go, don't worry, I'm being protected. I believed that.
My first impression when I was hearing about all this, I was like, well, if you're in that position, you cannot be reading the tabloids. You just can't. It'll drive you crazy. But she wasn't really reading everything, but people were telling her, hey, you're not reading things, and the palace people are not protecting your reputation or anything like that. The palace was possibly feeding into the whole narrative of good princess and bad princess, or they were not actively correcting the tabloids. It appears she believes that to be true.
But that they were willing to lie to protect other members of the family, but they weren't willing to tell the truth to protect me and my husband.
We see a lot of congruency with a congruent head nod, as well as her stable eye contact. There are no red flags where we would believe that she's being deceptive at all here. We don't see any nervous twitches or any defensive body language when she's saying that. She believes what she's saying is true.
And it's important to be able to compartmentalize that, because the Queen, for example...
How is the Queen's relationship actually with Meghan? Watch here, then we'll break it down.
...has always been wonderful to me.
This one's a little tough to figure out because there is some conflicting body language and you only really know how she really feels at the end. There's two parts in this. First, we see her do a very odd, incongruent head shake as she's looking away.
Has always been...
Then she closes her eyes, stumbles a little bit.
Has always been...
Is she lying here? She's not lying. Part two of this, we see her give a very congruent head nod.
Wonderful to me.
As she smiles, calling the Queen wonderful to her. So here's a psychological breakdown of what was going on through her head as she was talking here. She was asked the question and starts shaking her head. The head nod, head shake is very unreliable. The word that was probably going through her head was unbelievable. When you think unbelievable, you shake your head. You don't nod your head to unbelievable. That's one of the many problems when evaluating someone with head nod or head shake. What Meghan was probably thinking was unbelievable, and then slowed down and stuttered a little bit because her body language was out of sync with the word that she wanted to convey in the interview, which was wonderful. She had to change from a head shake to a head nod to make the word wonderful feel good and feel normal and natural. And that seemed to be the little bit of a hiccup there where she stuttered and closed her eyes.
Has always been wonderful to me.
Because she needed to subconsciously reset her body language. Meghan apparently subconsciously wanted to be emphatic about the Queen being wonderful to her. And then she ends on a very authentic and genuine smile.
Has always been wonderful to me.
Which seems to even further confirm that the Queen is wonderful to her.
I mean, we had one of our first joint engagement together. She asked me to join her. And
Is this on the train?
Yeah, on the
Yeah.
train. Mm-hmm. And we had breakfast together that morning, and she'd given me a beautiful gift, and I just really loved being in her company.
And as Meghan proactively talks about how the Queen is wonderful to her, even further indicates Meghan's positive feelings to the Queen. People naturally talk about and focus on what they want to focus on. So if she's proactively focusing on all the positives with the Queen, clearly there are those authentic positive feelings that she has towards the Queen.
And it made me think of my grandmother, where she's always been warm and inviting and really welcoming.
So, okay, so she made you feel welcome.
Yes.
Did you feel welcomed?
Now we see Meghan's eyes get glassy here as she's remembering back to her grandma and how the Queen reminds her of her grandma. This here is very congruent, very authentic body language.
The firm would say, well, you can't do this because it'll look like that. You can't, so even, can I go and have lunch with my friends? No, you're oversaturated, you're everywhere. It would be best for you to not go out to lunch with your friends.
Yeah, that is fascinating, at least for me as an American who doesn't really follow any of this. That there is what she at least calls the firm, which seems to manage the PR of the royal family, indicating that what we see and what you see in tabloids and, you know, who goes where and everything like that is apparently all orchestrated. Oh, you're in too many magazines. Let it breathe a little bit. Maybe you can go out later and then you can be in some magazines later. But right now you're all over the place. I mean, what the heck? I guess it kind of makes sense, but man, it seems kind of complicated, right? It's a lot easier just to be like, hey, I'm just going to live my life and, It is what it is. They want to take a picture, make up some stupid story. That's just what it is. They apparently, to some extent, work with the tabloids so that maybe some in the royal family can get more favorable coverage in the tabloids.
Do you think it's because of his race? And I know that's a loaded question, but
I can give you an honest answer. In those months when I was pregnant, all around this same time, so we have in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he's not going to be given a title.
Right here, this is the part that a lot of people are focused on, and for good reason. It's quite shocking. See what you think of her body language, and then we'll break it down as we go.
And also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
So far, what do you think? We don't see any signs of deception, no nervousness, no defensiveness, no self-comforting gestures, just extremely congruent and honest body language. Let's keep going.
what?
And
Even more congruent body language. Look at her eyes. Look how glassy they are. This is something that was hurtful. She's extremely truthful about this.
Who is having that conversation with you?
Yes, even more congruent body language. And you can tell looking at her eyes is very hurtful to her. Her eyes are becoming glassy. Her eyebrows are going down a little bit.
What?
so
Now, as the camera flips back on her, we see her adjust her dress a little bit as she's pressed on it, surely because she's feeling uncomfortable talking about this, because it seems like she doesn't really know how to talk about something like this without throwing a royal under the bus. So apparently, she does not want to reveal who said that to Harry.
There is a conversation. Hold up.
there's
Stop
several
right now.
there's several conversations.
There's a
about it.
conversation with you
With Harry.
about how dark your baby is going to be?
Potentially, and what that would mean or look like.
Ooh.
I would sit up at night and I realized that it was all happening just because I was breathing. And that was a very clear and real and frightening, constant thought. So that I've never felt this way before and I need to go somewhere. And I was told that I couldn't, that it wouldn't be good for the institution. There's so many people who are afraid to voice that they need help. And I know personally how hard it is to not just voice it, but when you voice it, to be told no.
That's just really sad. To think that someone is feeling that kind of depression and they go to someone for help. If a stranger came to me saying, I feel depressed, I need help, I'm going to try and help them. But just to think that the institution was just like, it's really, really sad.
And so I went to human resources, but there's nothing we can do to protect you because you're not a paid employee of the institution.
That seems to be their BS excuse.
And begging for help, nothing was ever done. So we had to find a solution. These are the thoughts that I'm having in the middle of the night that are very clear.
Clarification.
And I'm scared because this is very real. This isn't some abstract idea. This is methodical, and this is not who I am. It takes so much courage to voice that. As I said, I was ashamed. To admit that you need help, to admit how dark of a place you're in.
She was clearly having trouble, and she's very honest about this now, and it's sad and shocking that they don't go proactively and try to help her. So it makes all of us wonder, why though? Why wouldn't they want to help her? Is it because maybe her mental downfall is good for the tabloids and diverts all the tabloids' negative news to her as the bad princess and keeps the tabloids at bay? Or maybe because they felt that they couldn't have a mental health person come into the palace? Is it because they still have a backwards thinking and a stigma of mental health? It's just really, really, really sad.
I wasn't planning to say anything shocking. I'm just telling you what's happened.
Okay.
I'm sorry if it shocked you. It's been a lot.
I'm a little shocked.
It's been a lot.
I did not expect to have this much to say on this. Wow. So what we're going to do is split this video up into two parts. This is the Meghan only part, then Meghan and Harry together is going to probably be a second part, but I need to know whether this is something you really want to see. So if you want to see part 2 of the body language read of Meghan and Harry together, give this video a thumbs up so I know you want to see it. If this video doesn't get probably over like 5,000 likes within a shorter period of time, I may not make the video, so I really need to know whether you want to see a second part, because I don't know. Now in the comments, what is the most shocking part of this interview so far? Let everyone know in the comments below. If you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button now because we don't want to miss out on new body language investigative videos that always seem to shake up YouTube. And I'll see you at the top.